Right, so Dos, thank you for joining us. Obviously, in the off season at the moment, but lots of things going on. Very, very busy time, I'm sure, at the moment as well. Just wanting to look back from where we are as well at this point in the season. So, obviously, your incredible experience, 30 years as a manager this year for you, which is an incredible period of time. And I think you mentioned only 2 to 3 months sort of break in that whole period of time. So, just if you wouldn't mind, just telling us a little bit about sort of that history and your experience, just briefly so far.
Yeah, it's 30 years that have sort of shot by, really. I started when I was 30. I got the job at Eastleigh Football Club. Roger Sherwood was probably brave enough to take the chance on me at the time. I think 8 years at Eastleigh, we went from the Wessex League through to the National South. Loads of infrastructure work done there as well, including, sort of really making the ground a brand new stand. The company, Drew Smith at the time, that Stuart Munro, my brother and myself were part of, built the stand, and then we put the 3Gs in and put all the car parking in, and that was that journey, a long journey. And from there, I went up to London, and I had 11 unbelievable years at Sutton United. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Then went to Havant, more local to me, living in Winchester. Had 5 years at Havant, and unfortunately COVID for those sort of 2 to 3 years really affected that time at Havant. Sure. And then got the phone call from Dave Diper, asking me if I'd come and help, because he was looking to move up and on. And yeah, it was, I think that was in the September, October that the conversations took place, and I think I joined in the November of that season. So yeah, that's the brief history. That's a brief 30 years, but yeah, I think over 1,622 games is what someone was statistically telling me, which is obviously a huge amount of games. Someone said the other day, well, you've only done about 1,000 of those because you've been banned for the other 622. Thought that was a bit harsh, but yeah, listen, it's had a few bumps along the way. In life, you get the bumps. In management, you get the bumps. But yeah, I'm still as enthused today about my football. Football obsessed. Love the fact I'm at Sholing because it's a Southampton club. I think everyone knows I'm a huge Southampton supporter as well. So yeah, Southampton Football Club's like life, really. You go through the highs, you go through the lows. Certainly last season was one of those brilliant lows, but the football club gave me probably one of the best days of my life at Wembley the year before, with all of my children there, my wife there, and best family Saints Day ever. Yeah. So, if you know life, you know nothing's ever quite straightforward.
Absolutely. Obviously, you've touched on a few of those moments there, but obviously, as we chatted before you came on camera, so you mentioned, of course, managing against the likes of Arsene Wenger, beating Leeds United, obviously the Magical Cup run with Sutton United, just to name a few things in that fantastic time we've been talking about. So what is it when you, obviously, touched on, of course, Sholing as well, what is it that really kind of gives you that fire kind of when you take on a club or you go into a management role? What is it that really sort of pushes a button, so to speak, and gets you fired up about managing those types of
things? I think if people look at my football career, I've been very, very fortunate in terms of work as well to be able to help off the pitch as much as on the pitch. And I'm not a conventional manager in that sense. Most managers get paid, or if they lose 5 games, they're probably going to be under pressure to get the sack. And what I've managed to do is help develop clubs off the pitch as well, and that was certainly the case at Eastleigh, and Sutton and at Havant. So there's a joint sort of passion, really. One of them is to get young people playing football. People always know wherever I go, I'm an advocate of these brilliant 3G pitches, mainly because it gets young children playing football, gets them off these laptops and social media that they're on. And then from the football, I'm just, from the day I could walk, I've been football obsessed. I'm an absolute football nut. And that's probably my biggest, apart from the family, that's without question my passion. And that's where I put all of my energy and effort and enthusiasm into it. And football's given me as much back as I think I've given to football, that's for sure.
Sure, and I know you mentioned obviously just coming around to Sholing, obviously where we are now. So different journey, different experiences as you come into Sholing. What is it about Sholing as a club that really drew you here, and again sort of lit those fires, as it were, to kind of have that incredible experience again, hopefully moving forward?
Yeah, I think, as I said, the first year or two at Havant was really, really enjoyable. Brilliant chairman with Derek Pope, and get on fantastically with Richard Pope, and all the people down there were really, really good. They've got a passionate support base. But COVID sort of just sucked the life out of football. It's no crowds, and life got more and more difficult on the football front. We probably lost our way as well. I've got to say that. So when I left Havant, it was probably to leave football, if I'm being honest, and actually give Kate some time back as I promised. But then Dave Diper rang me, and I don't know if people know, but I was sort of born and bred in Sholing. I went to Western Park Boys School, which is the school directly opposite the ground.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I'd always admired Dave and his family for what they'd achieved there. It was Roy the Rovers stuff. Dave taking it from literally, it was a rope around the pitch.
Yes, it was significant changes.
As the old Vosper Thornycrofts, it's as a youngster, it's where I played football. It's where I played cricket. And when Dave asked me to get involved, it was on the back of him approaching his 70th birthday. I think he felt he'd pretty much given everything he could give. And a number of meetings and phone calls later, I agreed to help initially in the November and come in and manage to the end of the season. And typically me, within a few months of being involved, I get more involved, certainly off the pitch as well, see where I can help, see where my experience can push the club forward. Absolutely. And I think what we are 18 months later, I think we're very much step one, step two of the ladder. And I'm very committed, for this next journey. As I said, my journeys, if you see, will last 10 years and 12 years and 5 years. So, this is a journey that's going to be there at this football club, certainly for the next 6-7 years. And I'll just, do my best and give everything I can to make it work.
So, of course, you've mentioned there, obviously, you joined us in the November, and we've had some incredible progress at Sholing, obviously, in those 15, 18 months that you've been with us. Just to name a few things, obviously, the marquee, the events that we've had coming through, that's just exponentially grown. The 3G, of course, being the next thing, the stands, the development. Tell us a little bit more about that and how much has gone in, because it's such an incredible level. I've only touched on a few pieces there, but just what actually has been going on at Sholing in that time.
Yeah, I think because I am a Southampton man, and obviously my business was based in Southampton and Winchester. I can't again thank the people that have helped me that have got involved at Sholing with me. We've now got an ownership model in place, which I'm just part of. The other people that have got involved, I'm incredibly thankful for. We've now spent over, I think, £1.4 million in the last 18 months. As you said then, a state-of-the-art 3G pitch. Possibly it'll be one of the best, if not the best, 3G pitch with an unbelievable surface and a new stand, 2 new stands, the marquee, everything else that's been done. But that's on the back of a lot of hard work. And the other thing that it's not just the owners, it's the sponsors. I have to mention the likes of Brendan McNamara. Brendan has been incredible for us. He was the one that got the car park for 100 cars sorted out. He went and put in the foundations for the new stand for me. He put in that huge slab for the luxury marquee that we've got. And without Brendan helping and supporting and sponsoring, but more importantly, taking the phone call from me, because when my name comes up on his phone, he must think, oh my God, not again. But all these people, Appleton Signs, you go to the ground now, every single part of that ground is sponsored. And that's, again, Appletons have come on board as a main sponsor and done all of that for us. So there's so many that I should mention and will mention, but, Paris Smith and another one that have been massively involved in helping the club with legal situations and been positive for us. So a huge thanks to those people, the staff, but the owners in particular as well, because without them and without their hard work, no one sees the amount of work and hours and effort that goes in from everybody just to get that sorted. So yeah, very, very grateful, very, very happy with the progress, and that's without even talking about the football.
For sure, and then it brings us naturally on to my next question or discussion point. So, just in terms of obviously where we are in the season, obviously ready for a new one to start very quickly. Lots of work to do before then, of course. So, just probably something that people really aren't aware of in terms of sort of the signing player process. Of course, various changes naturally as the club goes through from season to season. Obviously, we see those as a football club Sholing quite often. So, just wanting to understand, and probably something for the viewers, just to understand kind of what that process is like for you as an experienced manager for signing those players, and of course the ups and downs of that process that can come with it. Because again, as we've touched on, huge amounts of work behind the scenes, and actually it'd be really good to just get a feel for what that journey looks like as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, you scheduled to come here for 12 o'clock today. You were on time, and you had to wait, I think, nearly 20 minutes whilst I was on the phone to the parent of one of the younger players that we're looking to sign. You heard, I think, 20 minutes of that conversation. It hasn't changed. You're still dealing with agents at this level. You're still certainly dealing with parents of young players. You have to give young players a pathway through. That's really, really important within the club. Hugely important that you maintain experience, with the likes of Daniel Mason and Byron
Sure.
Mason, absolutely critical. But the biggest thing with Sholing is that they were a phenomenal side playing in the Wessex League and the Southern League. And as you go up levels, and it's almost, Sholing's fault in some respects that they just got an unbelievable promotion into the Southern Premier League. And the reality was that the players weren't ready for that change in professionalism. Probably, I don't think the club certainly wasn't ready for the move up. Every time you go up a level in football, it's a huge jump. And one of the things that we've had to try and juggle over this last 18 months is, keeping that base, real solid base of Sholing players, but also up in the professionalism of lots of different areas, not just the football, but around the whole club. And as I said, it's been a real juggling act. You then go through the process of, take last pre-season. So you're delighted to go and get Ross Warner, who's basically played with me wherever I've been. You've got a number one goalkeeper. You're over the moon. Within 6 weeks, Ross is out injured for the whole of the season. You signed Jacob Gardner-Smith. You spend most of the summer chasing him to sign. A fantastic personality as well, great player. Within 6 weeks, Jacob has a horrific injury, on his ACL. He's out for the season. I've already referenced Byron Mason, an incredibly important player for the team, a leader, someone who the players respect and look up to. In pre-season, probably one of his first ever injuries, he picks up a calf injury, and he's out for nearly 6 months with that calf injury. It was a very, very complicated tear. Nothing to do with Byron's age, just really unlucky. Byron comes back. We win 7 games out of 8. We shoot up the league on the back of him being back. And then his hamstring, where he's overstretched to save a goal, he's out for another 7 weeks. So when you look at the people that we were missing from what you thought you had, Dan Miller, another massive, massive player for this football club, most dependable centre half you can get. Dan was out injured for 3 months. It just seemed to go on and on and on.
Never ending.
It was never ending. And then you're bringing in loan players and younger players that you don't really know as well because you haven't targeted them. What you're trying to do is fill gaps. And every manager will tell you that it's when you lose your best 6, 7 players, you end up in a real tricky situation. Manchester City themselves have found it this year. You lose Rodri, one player, then you lose 2 or 3 more, and then before you know it, the basis and spine of your team's gone, and you end up in a difficult season. So to finish 11th with the amount of difficulties that we had, and the problems throughout the season, I thought was an incredible achievement. Massive thanks to the players for that, because if you look at the minutes they played, the majority in the end were playing every minute of every game. Because you were there, we would often only have 13 fit players and name 3 players that weren't even with us, just so it looked more professional. So you always get that in the season. It happened to me at Havant twice for 2 years on the trot. It's happened to me at Sutton 1 year. When you have that year of injury, it really does have an effect on your season. And so my biggest hope for this season would be that the players that we've targeted have a healthy and successful year, just being fit.
Yeah.
Because if that happens, I believe that we've put together a squad that can be really competitive in this league. We said in the board meeting yesterday that we feel this league is a brilliant league for us. You get 10, 11 local derbies. It's ultra competitive. You've only got to look at which clubs have signed what players again this year. Some massive clubs for this level, Gloucester and Havant, and Taunton have made some incredible signings this summer. You can just go on and on. Dorchester, brilliant manager in Tommy Killock. Walton, thought they were the best footballing team with the budget that they had. So I could give you a dozen teams that think they will be there or thereabouts next year. Paul Town, you see the experience of the players, you see the good management team they've got, you see the backing that Andy Rossiter gives to the manager in terms of the budget. Gosport traditionally always would be expected to be in that top 5. So I think I've named about 8 or 9 now already.
Absolutely.
There's more that I could mention, and that's why it's such a brilliant league. And for us, to be competitive in that league, that's one of the main objectives. And we just keep pushing to improve, keep pushing to get better, but also do it in a sustainable way as well.
And I think just to wrap up then, just to bring this to a close, thank you very much, of course, but just in terms of, is there anything in terms of our fan base, that little sneak peek of anything that will be going on between now and obviously when we start the season? I'm sure there's lots of announcements to come, as you've alluded to, but any sort of updates that you can give?
We have signed 3 players already for various reasons, whether it's holidays, whether it's getting them to the club, whether it's the right thing for us to do. Those 3 players are already done. I think the biggest news on top of that for me is that Dan Wishart has had his operation on his hamstring. We hardly announced Dan signing last year because he signed one day and got injured. Byron Mason coming back fit is a huge plus for us as well. So not only are we going to be signing probably 4, if not 5 players, I also feel that with Dan Wishart and Byron Mason coming back, that's as good as 7. The brilliant news is that we've been able to retain every player that we wanted to. I think that's an important thing to say.
Brilliant.
Next year, we're training in the mornings. So that will be better for the players, the team. That's still 2 days a week. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays. You're going to hear every other team now say that we're full-time and all the rest of it, and we're not. It's rubbish. But they'll say that because it helps them. But Tuesdays, Thursdays in the mornings. The big ones we wanted to keep, obviously Jake Hesketh, superb player for us. Brad Target, again, another re-sign. Spencer Spurway, who I think could develop into a brilliant young player. I thought he was fantastic for me last year. Harry Taylor, Joe Rabetz and Blaze Riley-Snow and Reece Wiley were already on 2-year deals, so they're already there for next year. I think it's massive to keep Michael Falevi. If we hadn't have kept Michael, we'd have had to be in the market for a number 9, and they're like gold dust. So for him to want to stay and for him to enjoy it as much as he's done was a major bit of news at the end of the season. So I think we've done some really good business. We're bringing in a number 1 goalkeeper. We're bringing in a holding midfield player. We're bringing in another striker to go along with Dedan and Michael. We're bringing in 2 number 8s and 10s. So whilst I can't give you the names today, I promise you the work's been done.
That's it, absolutely. After 1 or 2, got many there.
We've got probably only 1 more, and that was the chap that you heard me speaking to and his dad today. We've got 1 more that we'd like to try and get over the line, and that would then give us a squad of 18 players. It's not a big squad. It's 16 outfield players with 2 goalkeepers, and Charlie Sales amongst that as the second keeper and goalkeeping coach. So a small squad, but I think with a small squad you get that team spirit and you get that ability to really gel together.
Perfect, wonderful. Well, once again, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll catch up on those updates very soon.
Thanks, Terry.